urge you all to make sure that your voices are heard tonight and that we make sure that we get the biggest representation possible. So thank you. I'd like to hand over to Mick now, who's going to chair tonight's proceedings and just introduce our colleagues here.
Okay, firstly, I do want to thank the three speakers tonight for coming and giving up their time, and I think it's a recognition of how importantly they recognise that this issue is. So tonight is the opportunity to express your views politely and in a dignified way, to ask the questions that you want and to get the answers that you're entitled to. So I'm going to ask first of all if Professor Marcus Longley will say a few words, and then I'm going to open to questions. What I would like, though, is this. Anyone who asks a question, I'll take them in groups of 3. So if you want to ask questions, could you please come up to the microphone here? If someone is disabled and unable to, we can use the roving mic. But the main reason being so that everyone in the audience gets a chance to hear the question properly and hear the answer, and also that those who are watching it online have that same opportunity as well. So if that's okay, I'll just over to Marcus Longley.
Right, thank you. Come round the front because it's a bit cramped here. So first of all, thank you. Thank you for inviting us. Thank you for giving this opportunity. Sorry, is that better? Thank you. Tell me if there's a whistle now. I'll try and move to here. So thank you for inviting us. This is the...
Do you want to use this one?
Sorry, this isn't a very good start. Is that better? Yeah. Good. So thank you for inviting us, first of all. This is the 3rd public meeting we've done now in just over a week. And I can tell you that this is by far the biggest. So that's testimony, I think, obviously, to the strength of opinion of the community. And we do very much respect that. We come this evening in a spirit of humility, really. Our job in the Health Board is to try to provide the best possible care we can for everybody who lives in our area, and in a sustainable way. And that is all we're trying to do, and I think in that I'm sure we share the same objective. So let me just explain to you why we're here now, why we're talking about this at all. The Health Board had its last meeting just last week, and it was presented with an analysis of the situation in the A&E department in the Royal Glamorgan Hospital. And for me, 3 lessons emerged from that analysis. The first lesson is that the current department is not safe to continue as it is, other than just in the immediate short term. And let me try and explain to you why we've come to that conclusion. This is all about the number of staff we've got available in 2 key categories: the senior consultant staff and also the middle grade, what are called the middle grade doctors, who do a lot of the running of the department. We have, and it's a massive credit to all the staff involved, kept the department going now for several years on a level of staffing that simply isn't enough. And we've now reached a particular point where the last remaining consultant has announced he's going to retire, slightly earlier than we had thought he would. So that has brought the whole thing absolutely to the front of our agenda. We are concerned, as I'm sure everybody in this room is, that we would be running a department that simply was not safe. We couldn't, in all conscience. My colleagues who are registered doctors could not, according to their professional code, run a department that we knew to be unsafe. So that was the first issue we've got to get to grips with, and that's the real factor why we're here tonight. The second factor is about the shortage of staff nationally. Estimates vary, but there are probably something in the region of 1,200 vacancies, unfilled vacancies across the UK for consultants in emergency medicine. Almost every hospital in the country struggles to recruit, and hospitals which aren't the centres, the major trauma centres, particularly struggle to recruit. That's been a problem now for many years. There's no immediate sign of it being resolved. There are issues, as Alex pointed out, around immigration controls and so on, but fundamentally there is a chronic shortage of those doctors. So that was the second point, I think, for me that was particularly important. The third point, I think, that's absolutely crucial is about the people we serve. We serve an area of Wales where travel is particularly difficult and where we know that the level of car ownership is particularly low. So we are trying to serve a population who have difficulty anyway accessing services and particularly accessing the services that we provide for those reasons. So we've got to deal with safety, we've got to deal with staff shortages, and we've got to provide care for the people that we serve. And it's a different set of issues if you're here than if you're in East Anglia, where travel is probably a bit easier. So that's why we're talking about this issue at all. And whatever we come up with tonight, and in this engagement that we're doing over the next several weeks, we've got to solve or come up with some way of solving those three problems. Because if we don't, the solution we come up with isn't worth it. So, the Health Board had 4 options to consider last week. And I won't keep on talking because I know people want to ask questions. 4 options we considered. The first option essentially was to do exactly what the South Wales programme said back in 2014 or whenever it was, which was, just to remind you, to remove the service in the Royal Glamorgan Hospital to being a 24-hour-a-day, what was called a minor injuries or minor illness service, essentially a nurse-led service without the consultant cover. That was what the plan said 6 years ago. That was the first option that we considered. The second option was that plus. So plus a number of the other things that have been done in the communities since then. So developing services out in the community in various ways, services to get people home quicker, to keep people well at home, and so on and so on. That was the second option. So a minor injuries service with some additional bits in the community. That was option 2. Option 3 was to sustain the current service exactly as it is. Well, I'll come to that in a minute. I'll come to that in a minute. So that was the third option. The fourth option, which is the one that there's been a lot of talk about in the last few days, was to preserve that level of service, so a consultant-led service with the middle grade doctors and all the rest of it, but for less than 24 hours a day. So let me just, we'll debate this, and I'm sure in the questions, but so let me just clarify to you what the option said, is that we would keep that service in the Royal Glamorgan Hospital for a period of time, and we weren't precise about the time because that needs to be worked up. It could be 10 hours, 12 hours, 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. So that was the fourth option. What the Health Board decided to do, so let's to be absolutely clear about where the Health Board currently is, the Health Board did not make a decision about what the future should hold. What the Health Board instructed its officers to do was to focus on, after debate, 2 of those options and to work them up. And when I say work them up, I think we're being very honest with you. We have not yet done all of the analysis that we would need to do before we could make a decision. So we don't know, for example, yet what would be the impact of those different options on patient flow, how many patients, what sort of patients, from where, all of the implications we need to model as accurately as we possibly can and using people's local knowledge. So that work is still in train. We haven't got the answers to that yet, and that's why the Health Board didn't make a decision. But the 2 options that it instructed its officers to pursue were, if you can remember them, option 2 and option 4. So the option 2 was to essentially do what the South Wales programme said with the additional developments that have taken place since.
Yeah, hang on, hold on. Everyone will get a chance to ask a question and to get an answer.
Yep, sorry, I'm probably going on for too long, I'm sorry. And the fourth option was to work up the maintaining the full level of consultant care, but for less than 24 hours a day. So those are the two options which we are currently looking at in more detail. However, the Health Board did say one other thing, which I think is really important. So what the Health Board said was, in relation to option 3, which was to keep everything as it is, that we would leave no stone unturned in this period to do everything we possibly can to see whether that option can be made viable. So we haven't got a preconceived idea that it is impossible. We think it's very challenging, but we will leave no stone unturned to see if we can make it work. And when I say no stone unturned, I'm really talking about recruitment of staff, because that is the issue that we keep coming back to. So you may have seen adverts that have just appeared this week, and we are doing everything we possibly can to recruit to that service. If we can recruit to a safe level, then we can go home, because the problem is solved. But we cannot ignore, we can't bury our heads in the sand and pretend we haven't got a problem. So that, I think, is what the Health Board has decided to do. Is that helpful, Mick, in setting things out?
That's very helpful. And what I